I'm Josh, a 25-year-old grad student living in a quaint, yet somewhat rundown, old house in downtown Kalamazoo. I share this place with 4 other guys. Our historic neighborhood is charming, with all the houses packed closely together. We even share a driveway with the house next door, which is split into 3 apartments. One summer evening, we were hanging out on our front stoop, enjoying a few beers and passing around a joint, when our neighbor from the top apartment approached with her boyfriend and another friend. She was always friendly, exchanging greetings whenever we saw her, but we never really got to know her. That night, however, we chatted for hours, and since they seemed nice enough, we invited them inside. The whole time we were talking, I noticed the boyfriend and their friend seemed jittery. They were all pretty greasy looking, their clothes worn out, and the friend had half of his mustache shaved off. Typical Kalamazoo oddballs, we thought, and didn't dwell on it. Inside, we got to talking about jobs. The neighbor and her boyfriend were unemployed, and their friend claimed to be a chemistry teacher at a community college. It sounded fishy, but we let it slide. As the night went on, the neighbor and her boyfriend left, but their friend decided to stick around. That's when things started to get weird. He was openly gay, which was fine, but he started hitting on me, making me really uncomfortable. He kept touching my thighs and making suggestive comments. I tried to brush it off, but when he went into my room and danced by himself for an hour, it was too much. Once he finally left, I locked my door and headed to a friend's place to shake off the unease. When I returned later with my girlfriend, I found out from one of my roommates that the guy had continued acting strangely after I left. He insisted on getting a hug from one of our female friends, and when she refused, my roommate had to kick him out. We all went to bed around 1 a.m., thinking the ordeal was over. The next morning, at around 7 a.m., my roommate was heading downstairs with a friend who had slept over. He wanted to make a sandwich and could only find a big bread knife. As he walked into the kitchen, he saw the guy standing at our front door. The guy freaked out when he saw the knife, and my roommate, equally startled, asked what he was doing there. The guy claimed he got locked out and had come into our house to sleep in the basement. My roommate, holding the knife, told him to get out, and he left without a fuss. We immediately called the cops to report the incident. A little later, we went down to the basement and found a message written in chalk on the floor. It was from the guy, apologizing for sleeping in our basement, accompanied by creepy drawings and the phrase "living dead boy." He had even included our names in the message, which freaked us out even more. He had been there all night, and none of us knew. When the cops arrived to take our statements, our neighbors came down, shocked that we had called the police. I told them bluntly, "Of course we called the cops. Your friend broke into our house." The police didn't follow up further, but a couple of months later, the neighbors moved out. Our landlord, who also owned their apartment, told us they had left the place trashed and full of used needles and other drug paraphernalia. We weren't surprised, but it was a disturbing end to an already creepy story. I'm Alex. I've always been the curious type, always wanting to understand the unexplained. That's probably why I couldn't resist exploring the old house at the end of our street. It had been abandoned for years, a derelict shell of a once grand Victorian mansion. Rumors swirled about its history, but no one seemed to know the full story. One evening, I decided to find out for myself. Why did I go alone? I guess I thought it would be a thrill, a harmless adventure. As I stepped into the house, a chill ran down my spine. The air inside was musty, and the floorboards creaked under my weight. With my flashlight in hand, I wandered through the empty rooms, feeling the weight of decades of neglect. After an hour of exploring, I found a door in the kitchen that led to the basement. Why hadn't anyone mentioned this before? The door was slightly ajar, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. Should I go down? My heart pounded in my chest, But curiosity won over caution. The stairs groaned as I descended, the light from my flashlight cutting through the thick darkness. The basement was colder than the rest of the house, and an unsettling smell of damp and decay filled the air. As I reached the bottom, I swept my flashlight across the room. What I saw made my blood run cold. In the far corner of the basement was an old wooden chair, and sitting in that chair was a doll. It was large, about the size of a small child, dressed in a tattered white dress. Its glassy eyes seemed to follow me as I moved. Why would someone leave a doll like this here? I approached it cautiously, my flashlight flickering, as if the battery was dying. What happened next is something I still struggle to understand. As I got closer to the doll, I heard a faint whisper, "Help me." The voice was so soft I almost didn't hear it. I froze, my heart racing. Was it my imagination? "Who's there?" I called out, but there was no reply. Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut, plunging me into complete darkness. My flashlight died, leaving me with only the sound of my own breathing. Panic set in as I fumbled for my phone, but I had no signal. I tried to retrace my steps, feeling my way along the walls, but it was as if the basement had shifted. The space seemed to stretch and contract, confusing my sense of direction. "Help me," the voice whispered again, this time closer. I could feel a cold breath on my neck. I turned around frantically, but saw nothing. My mind raced. Was I hallucinating? Desperate, I groped my way to where I thought the stairs were, only to find a solid wall. How was this possible? The whispers grew louder, more insistent. "Help me, help me." I stumbled back, tripping over something on the floor. It was the doll. It had moved. How could it move? I scrambled to my feet, heart pounding, and backed into a corner. Why was this happening? What did the doll want? I was trapped, alone in the darkness, with no way out. The whispers turned into cries, filling the basement with an overwhelming sense of dread. I sank to the floor, covering my ears, trying to block out the noise. What felt like hours later, I was found by a group of friends who had come looking for me. They said I was muttering incoherently, clutching the doll to my chest. I don't remember much of what happened next, but I know I will never go back to that house. Even now, I hear the whispers in my dreams. Help me. I don't know what it means, but I fear I never will. My name is Mark, and I always considered myself a rational person, not prone to superstition or fear of the unknown. That changed last winter when I had to move back into my childhood home to care for my aging mother. The house had always been a bit creepy, especially the basement. I'd avoided it as much as possible, but now I had to go down there regularly to check the furnace and fetch supplies. One night, after a particularly heavy snowstorm, the power went out. With only a flashlight in hand, I reluctantly descended the creaky wooden stairs into the basement. The air grew colder and damper with each step, and an unsettling sense of dread washed over me. What was it about this place that made my skin crawl? Reaching the bottom, I noticed something strange. The basement seemed larger than I remembered. Had there always been a door on the far wall? I approached it, my heart pounding. Why hadn't I noticed this before? Opening the door, I found a narrow, dimly lit hallway that stretched further than the house itself. Who built this? I muttered, my voice echoing eerily. And why? The question swirled in my mind as I ventured deeper. The walls were lined with old, faded photographs of people I didn't recognize. Their eyes seemed to follow me, and a cold shiver ran down my spine. Who were they? Why were their pictures here? Then I heard it, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper. "Mark." My blood ran cold. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. Silence. The whispering continued, growing louder and more insistent. "Mark, help us." I stumbled backward, flashlight flickering. Was this some kind of sick joke? Why was my name being called? Panic set in, and I turned to run back to the safety of the basement. But the door was gone, replaced by a solid wall. How was that possible? I pounded on it, shouting for help. The whispers grew deafening, overlapping voices pleading, crying, accusing. Suddenly, a cold hand gripped my shoulder. I whipped around, but there was no one there. "What do you want from me?" I screamed into the void. The whispers stopped abruptly, replaced by a single clear voice. "Join us." That was the last thing I remember before waking up in my bed, drenched in sweat. Was it a nightmare? I rushed to the basement, heart pounding, and found the door. It was still there, but the hallway was gone. Only the photographs remained, their eyes now filled with a haunting sadness. I moved out the next day, leaving the house to its eerie secrets. But the whispers follow me, even now, in the dead of night, calling my name. What do they want? And why me?